Good morning, Husker fans, and welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me as always is Danny Gillette, and we're back for a Saturday morning chat, another episode of our podcast, a live episode of our podcast. If you guys want to come hang out with us, if not, that's fine too. But we are here. We're awake on this Saturday morning. So, Danny, how are you doing?
At least we get to hang out with each other. That's what I always say. If nobody watches this, at least we get to talk together. So I'm doing good. I'm a little sleepy on this Saturday. Awake might be a little bit of a loose term, but I'm ready to talk some Husker sports. There's always a lot of stuff going on, so I'm ready to dive right into it.
Yeah, like we said, maybe not the best time. People are probably still sleeping, but there's still a lot of people that definitely come on, watch the replay. So, if you're watching the replay of this, definitely thank you for that. Also, make sure that you hit the like button on the video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our future content. But yeah, it's always a great time to talk some Huskers, and there's lots of stuff to talk, man, whether it's football, baseball, the basketball, the transfer portal. It's like trying to keep up with the transfer portal. Like my head spins with the different visitors and targets and contacts every week. It's hard to keep track of it all.
Yeah, it's a constant, moving parts type of thing, and a lot of visits, a lot of holes to fill for this team. So, I'm just kind of wondering, seeing all these pieces and where they all fit. Oh, we are live. I didn't think we were live. I thought we were just recording for a second. So that's good. Hello, everybody. Hey, Andrew. Hey, and good morning. So yeah, a lot of moving pieces, a lot of kind of visits, and right now I think it's just about filling spots on the roster and trying to see where they fit. Like we were just talking about off air. Gavin Griffiths, the Rutgers guard, came to visit yesterday. So it's not for lack of trying. Nebraska's trying to get as many guys in as possible, and they seem to be involved in a lot of visits and, making calls to a lot of different, players.
Yeah, Gavin Griffiths is one that, has me excited. He was basically, a top 60 recruit overall. And like I said, Rutgers, I think, is just not a great offensive system. So, I mean, I really feel like he would excel, with Fred Hoiberg. I mean, I don't know if people remember, but he had a pretty good game against Nebraska. He kind of got hot. And I feel like, he's got a little bit of that Tominaga where he can make, shots from 3-point range. Not the same at any rate,
Yeah.
but he does have talent. I mean, he was a
High
top
volume
60.
scorer.
Yeah, and he was a top 60 recruit. So, I mean, he would be a really nice addition and a guy that you've already seen play in the Big Ten. I mean, that's what I do like when I get transfers that, I've seen him be in the major conference. So, at any rate, then another guy that's going to be visiting Nebraska this next weekend is John Hughley, who, some people might remember from last year, the former Pitt center, Oklahoma. He played for Oklahoma last year, averaged 8 points a game. He's 6'10", 275. He only played like 19 minutes, but he shot 54% from the field. And, it's interesting. The last 2 years he's played under 20 minutes. So I don't know if that's like a, conditioning type thing. I mean, he is 275 pounds. So, that might be a situation where he would be, coming off the bench. But either way, I think that would be, an interesting possibility for the Huskers too, who are trying to replenish that front court after they had, one guy graduate and, two others enter the transfer portal.
I don't know if I love the fit there, but he is a good rebounder. I mean, he averaged 7.8 rebounds, 7.9 in 2021 and 2022. So I think he would be an interesting bench piece for sure. I think, when you look at, last year's team, for example, one of the reasons they were able to be so successful is because of the guys off the bench, particularly when Jamarcus Lawrence kind of transitioned from a starting role back to a bench role, just getting that spark off the bench. Guys like Sam Hoiberg as well, for example, even Eli Rice a little bit. The bench play was huge. And so although, landing a bench guy may not seem like a sexy move, it still is extremely important because it can make or break, the pace of a game when the starters come out for a rest. And let's face it, you need guys that can, play competently while your starters are out. So although I'm not necessarily in love with the idea of Hughley coming here based off of just a fit alone, I could see where he would be able to, serve his role as a bench scorer.
Yeah, and that's kind of the interesting thing with the portal is that everybody wants to start, but you've only got, so many positions. So you do have to find guys that are willing to potentially come off the bench. I mean, Bryce Williams, Juwan Gary coming off the bench for quite a bit last year. So that, because you look at it, you've got, two starters coming back for sure. That hopefully Rink Mast will be back. So then you'd have three starters. So you'd really just have two, starting spots available. And so it's going to be interesting how that all shakes out. Gavin Griffiths, I think, definitely could be one. And then you kind of need a point guard. And so I guess we'll just see how, they haven't really been in the mix with a ton of point guard types. So I guess I'm interested to see how that kind of develops, going forward. But there's tons of guys in the portal. There's going to be more guys in the portal. So, I think there's plenty of time. And Fred's definitely doing some work out there. We got our first question from Rick. Good morning, Rick.
Can I just say something on the basketball point really quickly?
Yeah.
And then we can go to football because I like football better anyway. We got abused inside in the Big Ten tournament, and it showed. So I think that's part of the reason why, we're kind of, looking at, rebounders and forwards and things like that, because guard play will come. But I think physicality inside is going to be what's important, because we struggled with that at times last year. And, I think the coaching staff realized it. And so I think that's why we're recruiting more of these, tall physical types. That's just my take on it. I don't know what you have to say about it, but that was one area where we really struggled last year, particularly second chance points in the Texas A&M game, for example. Those rebounds were killers.
Yeah, they definitely, I think, need to solidify the interior, and I would like to see him get a shot blocker. But Mitch calling us out here says 5 minutes of basketball talk or listening to basketball talk before football is like the first 5 minutes of a porno.
I know, and Mitch, I feel the same way. But we gotta talk basketball. That's why if you see on the website where Chris writes all the basketball articles and stuff like that, mostly, I mean, there's a reason why I only talk football, because that's the one I know best, and Chris knows way more than I do. So, but anyway, so to answer, do you think Danny Kaye can win the starting job at quarterback? I mean, he could. He's no slouch. I mean, we saw it this week. Him throwing dimes, Danny Dimes. They don't call him that for nothing. But I think it's still Dylan Raiola's job to lose. But the fact that we're having the conversation about whether a QB2 could potentially win the starting job is a lot better than where we've been in past seasons.
Yeah, I don't see it happening. I do think that he's going to make it interesting, though. I think he is making it interesting, which is good. And I think it's going to propel both of them. I think that's the challenge is going to be keeping them both here. But if Matt Rule can somehow find a way to keep both of those guys here for the next few years, Nebraska is going to be in a really good spot, because by the time, if Danny Kaye could theoretically, as we've talked about, redshirt, and then, have 2 years as a backup or whatever to Dylan, if he starts for 3 years, and then, because if Dylan's a 3-year starter, he's going to go to the NFL. I mean, unless his career, is doesn't pan out the way that we think it's going to, or whatever.
Don't even say that. No. I've had too many heartbreaking moments in my 4 years. Don't say that. I
mean, I don't think he's going. No, he's the guy, man. He's going to lead Nebraska. I truly believe that Dylan Raiola is going to, start a college football playoff game for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. You can put that in the bank. That's going to happen. I believe it.
So that's not one of your crazier takes. So I've
been wrong before. Yeah, I've had lots of tapes where I look really stupid. So whatever. I'm fine with it. But I feel pretty confident in that one. But and then, man, if you could have him and because Kalen would then just be ready to roll, and it's going to be tough because teams are going to. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if. Literally next. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if there was teams right now trying to get in touch with him, like, hey, enter the transfer portal. Maybe you could come play here. That's how crazy things have gotten in college football, where you literally have to re-recruit your own roster like every 6 months because they could enter the. I mean, I guarantee if he. It's like if Dylan starts all the games this year, but Kalen plays some in the background, has a few touchdown passes or whatever. Like there'll be SEC schools, or somebody offering him money to leave, but. I guess long story short, I don't see him winning the starting job, but I do see him, getting some play this year and kind of, having some impressive play when he does get on the field. But I think they're going to try, if possible, to keep him under 4 games. Yeah,
and I think that's a smart play. And also, having an athletic director that embraces NIL might be important when it comes to keeping Danny Kaye if a situation arises like that. I mean, Troy Dannon said he would wear the 1890 gear, whenever, just to let players know about the collective. So I'm very happy about that. I mean, money talks, and I think, quite honestly, that's part of the reason why Danny stayed here and made the decision in December to do so to begin with. So, I mean, we'll see what happens, but I don't think he's going to win the starting job, but I do think he'll be able to make it interesting, and it's always good to foster competition.
And then Mitch, he could about Danny Kaelin win the starting job. Rayola has the better arm and sees the field better. Also, going off what he's done in practice, has hit far more receivers, which means he's seeing the field faster, going through progressions, checkdowns. Too much is being made of one video where Kaelin threw 2 good passes. Kaelin is good, though, and will be awesome eventually. So
I can absolutely buy that.
Mitch's comment. Yeah, and I've heard that plenty, and that's the thing too is, Dylan Raiola not only has the incredible talent, but he's got the mindset for a quarterback. He's studied this, he knows it. He's done, how much preparation over the years with his dad, with different QB coaches. I mean, the fact that his dad was an offensive lineman and a center, I think, just really truly gives him a unique insight into, people have talked about how he knows like all of the assignments for the offensive line, all the protect. I mean, that's stuff you should know as a quarterback, but like it's going to make, setting your protections and doing all those things just much easier. And I have heard that. I've noticed that too, where he, gets the ball out quickly. And I mean, I think you could even see that in the Polynesian Bowl. I mean, it's not like he was constantly trying to, force the ball down the field. He knows. And even when he talked about it in his press conference, he's like, we've got playmakers on this team. My job is to get the ball to the playmakers. Just play point guard, man. You don't need to be, truly, Danny and I have talked about this, but I don't know if I've ever been as excited as I am about this receiver group. I mean, Isaiah Nair, Banks. I mean, like those guys are great. And I think Banks is really, I think people are underestimating how good he's going to be this season. But like Jalen Lloyd, Malachi Coleman when he comes back, Demetrius Bell, Ja'Cory Barney, and that's not even talking about Isaiah McMorris and Davon Hall, who I think like 2 years ago probably would have been playing a lot as freshmen, and I think they have the talent to play as freshmen. It's just going to be hard to, get on the field with all the talent in front of them. It's pretty impressive, to be honest with you.
And, what do you do when you have a good quarterback surround him with playmakers? And that includes the offensive line. The reviews have been strong on Gibson Pyle and Grant Bricks this week, Matt Rule. I know you wrote about it on HuskerBigRed.com. Matt Rule's been impressed with their progression. And I know even if I post something about a defensive tackle, somebody in my comments goes, what about the O-line? Well, finally, we got some O-line updates. And Bricks and Pyle are impressing. And, we kind of always thought that they would be solid linemen, but it's just good to hear that from the coach's mouth.
Yeah, and it was interesting that Matt said that he would be playing tackle, so that's good to hear in terms of Grant Bricks. I did want to get back to Rick's other question. Do you think fans will lose their minds if Heinrich Haarberg starts the season?
Yes.
Danny says yes.
Yes, speaking just for me, yes, if that happens, I don't know. Chris might be doing this podcast solo, and I know I've threatened that he'd be doing this podcast solo about 7 times this offseason, but if Heinrich Haarberg starts, I mean, I love the kid. I'm not going to bash him based off his play because he was a warrior last year. He got banged up so many times and hit so many times, and yet he battled. I still remember his big run. I think you were on the plane against Louisiana Tech, where he just was off to the races. It was absolutely electric. But yes, I mean, I think I would, and I think Chris would. And I mean, at this point, I'd rather develop the future than just to go back to what we tried last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think people would. I just don't think it's going to happen. I mean, Nebraska paid, Dylan Wright. I mean, all reports, I'm not saying there's been a firm number out there, but everybody basically said it's been $1 million in NIL. And actually there's, I guess I'm trying to think of it's like Herbie's Hangout or whatever. I want to give the guy credit. It's a blog, and it actually seems somewhat connected. But he talked about in there that definitely rubbed Trev Alberts the wrong way. That he didn't like, Dylan Raiola getting that money, and for some reason it was like there was competition or between the fundraising, and he was like jealous that fundraising was going to go towards NIL instead of into his coffers, which that is a real thing.
Because Gary Sharp said the same thing too. He said that Trev Alberts wasn't really huge on NIL. And if you notice, just in the last couple of weeks, Dylan's been on Bussin' with the Boys. Bussin' with the Boys came to Nebraska. There's been a bunch of fundraising efforts. The 1890's been more visible on social media. So Alberts can shove it. Either get left or get left behind in terms of NIL. And hopefully Dan will fully embrace it because, like it or not, that's the direction college football is going, and you need to compete.
Yeah,
especially with these two schools. I think USC and UCLA and Oregon and Washington. I know I said two, but that's four right there. My guess is they're not going to be easy to overcome.
yeah, no, it's not going to be easy. And I mean, yeah, I do think that's really interesting. And you see that with a lot of the athletic departments because it's like boosters only have so much money, and they used to just give it to the school and it was like, whatever they were going to do with it. But now the boosters are giving their money more to the NIL and the athletic departments don't really like it. So, I mean, it's just kind of interesting. But, that's because Trev cared more about his stupid little stadium project because he wanted it for his resume. He cared more about that than actually winning. And that's the thing is that's not going to help kids win. Like that's like such old school thinking that, like locker rooms or even the weight room and all that fancy stuff, all the great equipment that Nebraska have. I don't think that helps them get kids at that much at all. I mean, truly, to be honest, I think it does help, but it's about the coaching staff. And then a lot of these kids, it is about NIL, it is about money. And if you or if someone's offering me, 5,000 or nothing to play at a school, even if they have the nicest facilities, state of the art, everything, and someone else has offered me $100,000, where you think I'm going to go, man? I mean,
Because
nine
now
times out
every
of
team,
10, yeah,
yeah,
it's about the money. So don't,
every team is starting to build new stadiums
yeah,
and make new additions and stuff like that. So that's no longer a huge selling point anymore.
yeah. So Trev is an idiot. Texas A&M can have him. I thought Mitch made a funny comment, and a true comment though. He could teach Heinrich Carberg could teach a class on how to take the most violent possible
Learning
hit.
how to fall when you're hit is something that Tom Brady did very well. And
Well, and
yeah,
I think the thing that hurts Heinrich is because he's a little taller, and so when he's like just
yeah,
standing straight up and he is. I do think that we're going to see him. It wouldn't surprise me if he played more than Danny this year because Danny Kalen, because I don't think they want to burn his red shirt, but I also think that they'll utilize him as a runner in some cases. I mean, why not? He's pretty. I think 20 times a game he gets wore down, but if you keep Heinrich in that 5 to 6 range, like he'll hand out some torment right to those defenders, man.
he was a physical quarterback. He was a very physical quarterback,
Yeah.
kind of in the
What did
classic
they what did they say that he'll just run through your face mask? I mean they say that now. You've noticed like Nebraska coaches will say that about other players, but that all started with Heinrich Harburg.
Yeah, and he is one of the most physical quarterbacks I've honestly ever seen play. Kind of a throwback to the older days of football, but I'm happy he's here. I'm happy he's on the team because I think he'll be able to bring a lot, both in terms of work ethic and character, as well as his just play on the field. So, I'll be interested to see what they do with him.
So Co Subs says, fans will lose their SHIT for sure if
Yeah,
it's
100%.
Harburg's the
Like,
starter. And then
there's no question. They
he
absolutely
also
will.
said, I think it does help Dylan and his brother treat it as a retreat to a football heaven.
I do think it's important to keep your facilities updated for sure and to keep them as nice as possible. But the thought of, oh, we have a huge brand new facility and we're the only ones that are doing it nowadays aren't as true anymore.
And then Mitch, the goal of Dan should be to fold NIL into the athletic department budget because that is a huge issue, money being redirected. I think that's where, I think he said that, and I think that's where it's headed. I think it's going to be where schools are paying players, and that's probably what should happen. I mean, at some point, I think we're going to get to a situation where we have some sort of like salary cap for
Yeah.
players, and it's going to be basically mini NFL, which is fine. I mean, I have no,
Yeah.
people.
Me neither.
I mean, yeah, I mean, do I long for the days of the Big Eight and the Southwest Conference and the old bowl system? Sometimes I do, yeah, but this is the way we are. It's not going back. It's what it is.
I agree. And the Big Eight, you're a little older than me.
The
Wow.
Big Eight,
Big,
man.
the Big Eight. Tell me stories of the Big Eight. Regale me with stories of the Big Eight. No,
The
but
bi- the
but I don't
bi-
think
the bi- Mitch probably can know. Mitch probably
Mitch
knows about
probably
the.
can
There's
tell
a
me
few
stories about
guys that'll
them.
know about the Big Eight in this chat, but yeah, man, like
Yeah.
the Nebraska, Kansas, and
Yep.
it used to be a really great rivalry was Nebraska, Kansas State. That really got pretty heated, and so that's one that people don't talk about is games that don't get played. But there was a while where like every year where they played, it was like a top 15, top 20 matchup, and it even in the Big 12 days. So. But I just miss that, the round robin type thing where you actually decided a conference. Because now it's like, man, we got 18 teams and like we can say they're the conference champion, but they could maybe win the conference without even playing the best, one of the best teams. I don't know. It's what I believe. I truly believe it's. You can point back to the SEC, the SEC championship game, and the creation of that is the domino that clicked all this off, because that then the Big Eight and the Big 12, the Big Eight became the Big 12 because they wanted their championship game, and then the Big 10 had to expand, and everybody did it to get these championship games. So thanks a lot, SEC. You ruined college football.
Fans don't have to pay the players, but schools know that fans will pay in NIL. Like, schools know that fans are passionate enough to be able to, donate and, want to donate. So I don't think they're
I've
pushing.
donated freaking NIL money, not that
I
much,
haven't yet
because I'm not that rich, but
I haven't yet. But to Mitch's point, money being redirected, I didn't know where it was going, so I didn't want to donate to, I don't know, some program that I didn't want my NIL money to go to. And I know they have things on the website that says where do you want this to go, but it wasn't really too clear. So I haven't yet, but I might if we start actually winning.
And then Bill Schneider was a great coach, and the fact that he retired and then came back and won more there he was pretty spectacular. So, but at any rate, I do pine for those days of the Big 12. But in terms of spring practice, good morning,
Hi, Dion.
Dion. Good morning, man. But in terms of spring practice, a lot of interesting things going on. I know everybody wants to talk about the quarterbacks, and that's natural. And but I think there's a lot of like you said, the offensive line. There's a lot of interesting things. I mean, I think Donovan Raiola said that Justin Evan Jenkins was starting at guard, but also getting snaps at center,
which I like. I'm on the buy high, Justin Evans Jenkins train because I really liked him last year. So I'm happy to see he's getting his due as far as reps are concerned.
And then, I like too, just having, it's nice to have him kind of, double repping. And, I'm thinking that I'm trying to check here what his age is in terms of scholarship. So he's only a redshirt sophomore. So, I mean, then when Ben Scott leaves, he could slide right in and be your starting center next year. So, I mean, that's if you can have that position locked down with a kind of experienced player, you can feel pretty good about that. And Mitch, Jacobs almost started at center last year, really pushed Scott for the job. So I think that's a great sign. And I thought he, played very well last year when he started at guard in terms of Jenkins. So I would have no problem with him starting there. And it's good to give him those reps at center too, though, because he definitely feels like the center of the future to me.
And Co says the Dowdell news is interesting to me. He might be the 3 or 4. I wonder what he got paid to come, probably more than Johnson. See, my problem with Dowdell being 3 or 4 is that I'm at the point where I can't count on Ramir and Gabe anymore. You have Emmett as potentially the one. Then I'm assuming if Dowdell's the 3 or the 4, you either have Irvin or Ramir as the 2 or both as the 2 and 3, and then Dowdell is the 4. Like, I don't.
I think it's way too early to talk running back depth chart. Talk to me in the middle of August, 2 weeks before the season, then we'll know. Because like right now, how much? I mean, I know that they're playing more with pads than probably most teams, and they are probably today going to scrimmage. They'll have the spring game and stuff, but running back is one of those positions you can't really judge much, unless they're actually truly hitting and tackling to the ground. So I mean, like I get I'm not that. I mean. I just think
you
it's
can
way
definitely
too
judge
early.
our running back room. We have a stud in Emmett Johnson. We have injury-prone players in Ramir and Gabe, and we have a transfer in Dowdell who's looked pretty good. But, I mean, we're not returning the same guys necessarily because obviously Dowdell is new in the picture, but we know what we're getting with the other 3.
Yeah, I just, I mean, Ramir, though, I mean, I think, obviously, they need to stay healthy, and you can't, rely on that, but you also can't, I mean, I don't think you can base your depth chart off, the idea that they might get hurt. You just have to play the best guys. And I think the way it's going to work out, though, is Emmett, I still think Emmett and Dowdell are going to get most of the carries. That's just
and I think they need to utilize Ramir as more of a pass catching weapon than true running back per se, because I feel like I remember the Michigan game in 2021. He really kind of showed off his skills there as that pass catching back, and I think that's where he fits the best.
Yeah, and then you have to, factor in pass protection too, because that is the thing that young running backs struggle with. I don't know, how good Dowdell is at that. And I'm really, I don't quite remember that much from Emmett Johnson. I'd have to study it last year, but I feel like, yeah, I just can't remember, but I know that Ramir is somebody that that they're probably going to trust a lot in pass protection. And when you have a quarterback like this, and you're going to throw the ball a lot, I mean, you need somebody who can, pick up blitzes. Like that's just not a small thing. That's a huge, thing in terms of playing time. And so, that's also why I could see Ramir getting those, things on third down is who can block and who can catch the ball out of the backfield. And that probably the best guy is Ramir Johnson. And I thought it was very interesting that Matt Rule. He hasn't said many things about the previous staff, but he did slip in this week that he could not figure out why Ramir wasn't the lead back in 2022 or whatever. So
Well,
I
neither
agree
could
with him.
we. Neither
Yeah.
could we. So I don't think it was any
I mean, Mark
major
Whipple
secret.
literally compared him to Brian Westbrook and then never played him. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. I
And
just
it
don't
wasn't
get
fair
it.
to him, but the drop against Illinois, I think, must have shaken the coach's confidence or whatever. But I mean, after that, he didn't really see the field much. So I don't know. There's Mark Whipple for you.
But it was also before that they didn't play him a lot. And so then it's like, yeah, you don't play a guy, then throw him in there. And that,
I don't know why he stayed.
I mean, I'm not sure on that, but I always think,
he'll have a role for us, but I don't know from a personal standpoint why. I mean, maybe to finish out and get his degree, but from a football standpoint, he's really been done dirty. So I wouldn't have blamed him if he left.
yeah, I'm glad he stuck around, and I think he can help in the kick return game too. But it's not. I don't know. Ethan Nation and some of those other guys are gonna be in the mix as well. Who I really like Ethan Nation. What I've seen from him, that guy is really dynamic, and I feel really, really good about the secondary, the young cornerbacks and safeties that we have. The defense. I mean, I just feel good about the entire defense. I mean, you look at the recruiting. Rule's first recruiting class, and then this 2024 class. I mean, I'm not going to say they've hit a lot of home runs, but I mean, they've hit a lot of, coming off the bat looking really good, going deep to the outfield already, like they maybe some home runs, some doubles down the line. They've hit a lot of positive things right now with this with these first two recruiting classes.
The returns on the 2023 class have been absolutely great so far, and in 2024 looks even better. And we're not even talking obviously because he's not here, but about Carter Nelson. I mean, we'll have to see what he can bring to the table when that time comes. But that's another weapon that is kind of stored away for now.
Yeah, and McMorris too.
Yeah, McMorris and
we haven't even mentioned the name Jaden Doss. I mean, that's crazy. Yeah. And I mean, but yeah, it's that 2023 class, man. Like, holy cow, Matt Rule. Not only did he get the some of the good guy, the top players, but just like when they went down, and I mean they were one of the first bigger schools to offer like Jalen Lloyd. I thought, Keelan Smith is a good name too there, but just some of those guys that they went out and got, turning into pretty good players, and I just think that it shows that Matt Rule can evaluate talent and he can recruit. Not only can he recruit though, but he can evaluate that talent, and then they have a plan for developing it. And I just think Nebraska's in a good spot right now. But got to win the games though. You have to perform every Saturday. But good. I was just going to say it's a day by day process. Not to quote the movie, but the good programs that do it, they get better a little bit. It is a day by day consistent thing. So.
You look at Jalen Lloyd and you wonder how he slipped through the cracks that much. I mean, he has speed. He's an absolute deep threat. He can make things happen after the catch. I mean, good on Nebraska for getting him early, but man, teams missed out.
And it's not like he just was a track star. I mean, if you look at he put up some decent numbers.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, guys just get underrated here, although now they're, I see that Chase Lofton is visiting Florida State today. And so, that is what it is. They're making a push. Is it Roman Zybert?
Yep, Roman Zybert, and then there's another one who's I can't remember. I'll look it up and get back to you right now, actually. But Christian Jones, even who I'm not sure if we'll be able to land. It's going to be an uphill battle, but teams are starting to recognize the type of talent in the state of Nebraska, and you and I kind of talked about last year, or actually 2 years ago, that we need a coach that can understand how to recruit the state, because there are going to be a lot of talented kids to come through. And, there are going to be a lot of, key players that we need to land. And so far, Matt Rule and his coaching staff have done that. And the other tight end that I was just thinking of was Berrettini. I don't believe he's a Nebraska native, but he's a three-star. He's a three-star player. Zybert is a three-star player, and I think there's a lot of tight end talent coming in future classes. And you look at some of the other guys. Not to go on a rant here, but a guy like Jackson Carpenter, I think he's very underrated, and he'll be a really good player coming soon. And he's already coming for an official visit, I believe, on the 21st of June. So, I mean, there's a lot of talent here, and now Nebraska has to capitalize. They did pretty well with 2023 and 2024, and now they need to keep it going. I mean, 2025, they've already landed Caden Vermas and Tyson Terry. So just to be able to continue that Nebraska pipeline to the program will be extremely important, because there are a lot of solid kids here.
And Pierce Newberry, I think, is visiting, soon too. So I think they're in a pretty good spot with him. And like you said, Jackson Carpenter. And yeah, it is going to be, tough with Christian Jones and Chase Lofton, but it's like I've said, I wouldn't count out Matt Rule with these in-state recruits.
No.
So, nobody at this point, nobody is really, with like a full, kind of time for Matt to recruit him. Nobody has really came in and plucked, one of the players that they've really prioritized in the state. So I'm interested to see if this will be the first time that happens. But I'm also wondering, like with Christian Jones too. I mean, he hasn't visited Nebraska this spring, and I've talked about that too. But he's also been to Nebraska like 8 freaking times, and he lives right. Yeah. So maybe he's just taking his time to see other schools.
Which I definitely understand that.
Carter Nelson kind of did the same thing, but then he still made it to the spring game. So I still would think that, that's the goal for Nebraska. Just get him here for the spring game, maybe. And then, hopefully his decision is sometime this summer. You do the official visit and goes from there. But, some kids do just want to leave too, leave their home or leave their home state. And so, if that's the case, there's nothing you can really do about that. And you just wish them well and, hope it works out for the best for everybody. Okay, Jim Allen. Raiola is leading on and off the field with his enthusiasm is a good sign for Nebraska. And I think you could say that about, we've heard nothing but positive things about the leadership from the quarterback room.
Yeah, and from all quarterbacks, from Raiola to Harburg, and that's a good sign, because there hasn't always been that leadership at the position there. But you could tell that these 3 quarterbacks in the room understand what it means to play quarterback for Nebraska. They're ready for the challenge. Harburg, took on a difficult challenge last year and did fairly well, all things considered. So this quarterback room is very experienced, even if they're freshmen, they understand the game, and they understand what it means to, play quarterback and, represent this Nebraska program.
And then, so I think, sorry, we missed this comment. Somebody will be leaving that wide receiver room this spring, along with lots of others, I would think, with the numbers. And then,
I could see that. Yeah.
Mitch says, I doubt you'll see much attrition. There's still not overwhelming depth there. Lots of plays to be spread out, room for advancement, and elite NFL QB to get you the ball and stats. Those guys aren't going anywhere. So that's
I could see maybe 1 or 2, because we do have a lot of bodies at wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Mitch is right in a sense. I think that they're going to do a good job of getting him, getting him the football. There's a lot of mouths. It kind of reminds me of my Green Bay Packers. There's just a lot of young wide receivers who are talented. There's not like a true number one, a lot of mouths to feed, which can be a problem. But if you've got the right guys where they're not, and you have the great culture, then I don't think it's that big of an issue. And it makes it really, really hard to defend. If if you're going out there as a defense, right, and you've got basically 4 guys who could, be like a number 1 type guy for you, that makes you pretty hard to defend, because, if you shift your coverage one way, then that means that one of those guys is getting a one-on-one matchup. And yeah, like give me Jalen Lloyd or Malachi Coleman one-on-one all day, or Jamal Banks, Isaiah Nair, or Carter Nelson. So, I feel pretty good with where they're at.
Or give me Ja'Cory Barney. I'm buying the Ja'Cory Barney start.
Yeah, Ja'Cory Barney, yeah.
You've heard me talk about it all week, and Sad said they'd be pass heavy this year. Well, they tried to be pass heavy last year until Rule kind of drilled it into his head that he doesn't have the talent to do that. So I would assume it would be the same thing, yeah. And why not? You have all these shiny new toys to play with, and it's time to let them loose.
Yeah, the defensive back room is crowded. That is crowded. There's a lot of really good I mean, there's guys that are like good enough to start who aren't going to be starting this year. So just based on the number, because I mean, the safety position, there's like 4 or 5 guys who I think could start for most
Well, let's see.
teams.
We got the freshman Donovan Jones, safety, right? Or is
I
he a
think he's a
corner?
cornerback.
But you
I
have
mean,
Benning.
Nebraska just puts him as defensive back, so it's hard to say exactly.
You
But
have Benning that we know of. You have Benning, Kamir Prescott, who's interesting. And then you have Singleton, and then you have one more. I
well, you
can't
got
remember.
Buford. I mean, you have Buford,
Buford, that's
Singleton, and Gifford are your 3 starters. You got Kobe Bretz. You got Malcolm Hartzog, who also plays, some safety. So there's 5. I mean, so even right there, Bretz, Hartzog, Gifford, Buford, Singleton. I mean, that's five veterans right there. And then cornerback, you got Tommy Hill, and then you got some younger guys, Bly Hill, Ethan Nation, Dwight Boodle, all those guys. So, and Hartzog too. Hartzog goes kind of between back and forth.
Tommy Hill has another year like he did last year. He'll be playing on Sundays. I don't know why the previous coaching staff thought it was a good idea to put him at receiver or try him at receiver. And I know the defensive scheme was bad 2 years ago, but he played well last year, and he'll be playing on Sundays if he has another good year.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess, whether it's receiver or defensive back, I mean, the thing about the defense last year is they played a ton of guys.
They did.
So, I mean, even if you look at, I mean, Michigan, I'm not to bring up Michigan, I know people hate that, but they had a ton of talent and they just played a bunch of people. I mean, if you have truly playable depth, like you can rotate guys in, you can keep, multiple positions fresh. It doesn't just have to be, your defensive line. You can do it on all 3 levels. Almost like, I mean, there was times last year with the Michigan defense where it was like a shift change and they would have almost an entirely different group of guys out there, but it basically was the same result. And I think Nebraska could, kind of replicate that this year. That's how much depth they have, really.
Yeah, they do. And, I think it's important to remember that depth could be needed at any given moment. I mean, you look at the running back room, how they were all hurt in September. And you needed the depth at running back right away, and we didn't have it. So, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of names in the room, but come camp where injuries start to mount up and, things like that happen, the depth could disappear quickly. And knock on wood, we haven't had a ton of injuries this spring either, which is a good sign in comparison to past years.
Yeah, and I just think, I was going to say, I don't think Tony White was like joking when he said, he wants to be the number 1 defense in the country. I don't think that's a joke. I think that's a realistic goal. Yeah, Tommy Hill's been spectacular, and he's worked his butt off, and he's started to deliver on that promise that everybody kind of saw when he came here of being a NFL caliber defensive back. If he has another season like he did last year, he's definitely going to be getting drafted. I would say at least a day 2 pick. I mean, if he comes out and has another 5 interception season, he's going to be like first team all Big Ten. And those kind of players get drafted pretty high, especially when you can run the way Tommy Hill can run and have his size and everything.
Absolutely. And, you mentioned that speed, that was really evident last year with the previous, not to go like lament about the previous coaching staff, but they had all corners, quite honestly, play more, soft coverage and had them play back a little bit. And guys like Hill and, some of the other guys on the roster struggled last year with the improved defensive scheme. Hill was really able to attack, and these corners were really able to attack, and it worked out well for guys like Omar Brown and Hill. And so the scheme fits him better, and I think that's what really helped him last year too.
I mean, so like last year he started 7 games on defense, had 26 tackles, but his ball coverage numbers are like insane. He had obviously 4 interceptions, but he had 13 passes defended, during the regular season, which was tied for the Big Ten lead. And during conference play, just like 9 conference games, he had 12 pass breakups. I mean, that's getting and 4 interceptions. So he either intercepted or knocked the ball away 16 times in 9 Big Ten games. So, I mean, that's freaking incredible. That's like twice a game.
All right, so here I just pulled up a depth chart here.
From our lads, though, I'm not sure how accurate that is.
I'm not sure how accurate that is either, but there's at least a list of names.
Yeah, because that's what I was gonna say is like, we can. It's just, It's hard to. I mean, if Nebraska like popped out a depth chart, like this is where everybody stands right now, then absolutely. But
Well, I
anyways,
think
thanks
it's
for
more
pulling that up, though.
interesting. I think it's more interesting when you look at the jack position and they have, Stephon Thompson and MJ Sherman, for example. I would at this point maybe flip the two and have MJ Sherman as the main jack. Then you have Wright as the middle linebacker, Bullock. Kobe Brett's at Rover is interesting. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I agree with Hill at left corner, Gifford at the safety position, and then Singleton at free safety and Hartzog as the right corner. I mean, yeah, there are a ton of freshmen, but I think when you look at just the base of this roster, I think it's honestly pretty accurate for now. I mean, the running back room is interesting. They have Dodell as the 3, and then Johnson and Irvin as the 1 and 2. So we'll see. It's just kind of
Yeah,
interesting to look at.
I mean, it's okay, but like they've got Prince William as third at I think he's going to be the starting jack. I don't know what they're talking about with Stephon Thompson, but I mean, Princewell passed MJ Sherman last year, so I really. And then, I mean, yeah, I could see Jamari Butler starting at end with Leonard working his way in there. But yeah, Stephon Thompson, I think, is going to be an inside linebacker, and I can see him being in the mix with those other two. The Rover, I think, I mean, yeah, I don't necessarily see that being, Tommy Hill, excuse me, Kobe Bretts, but I do think he could be, in the mix. I guess it just depends how, I personally see, if they're saying the Rover is like, the nickel, then I think that's going to be Malcolm Hartzog. And I think, it's either going to be Bly Hill or, Ethan Nation or one of those guys is going to start at the other cornerback spot.
I agree with the offensive side mostly. Like with the line and stuff, there's some pretty. I don't agree with Garcia Castaneda in the slot, but
Yeah, and they have Turner Corcoran as the left tackle, even though I guess he was last year, but that right now that's Prohashka's job. Like, there's no doubt in my
I
mind.
would flip Lloyd and Garcia Castaneda for now. I mean, the wide
Yeah,
receivers look okay. I mean, at this point, I wouldn't put Malachi over Isaiah just because of his health. But Banks over Bullock makes sense, and then Micah Mazuka over Henry Lutovsky makes sense, assuming that Mazuka is fully healthy and ready to go, because I know he had some issues to start the spring. But I mean, yeah, this depth chart isn't necessarily the most accurate, but it does give you a good idea of what.
I mean, it's not
is
bad
on the
considering they
roster.
have to do for 140 teams. I mean, there's no way we can expect them to know every player on every team, and it's hard. Nebraska's secondary is difficult because I mean, even Matt Rule said like literally at times last year he didn't know if players were a safety or corner, and it really doesn't matter. I mean,
Yeah,
if you're Malcolm, like to me, I think Malcolm Hartzog, because like I mean, the nickel position, like it is a starting position now. And that player, I think, could be one of the best players on your defense. So I would just put him there. I would just put him there. And then, if you need somebody like to match up coverage wise, you can do that with them. But I like the versatility that they have, in the secondary. And I'm really excited. I mean, Isaac Gifford, I don't think it's talked about enough. I mean, if he was in the NFL, in the 2024 NFL draft, he'd be getting drafted. So would Nash. So would Ty Robinson.
Evan Cooper talked about Gifford the other day, and he gave him a ton of praise. So I'm happy to see Gifford getting his flowers. Gifford reminds me a lot of his brother, just that tough as nails, dirt dog, loves to play the game type of player. And I'm really happy he came back, because he's really turned into a formidable player on the back end.
Yeah, and I mean, he's a much better athlete than people give him credit for.
Yeah,
So,
very good at coverage.
yeah, he was outstanding last year. So, it's going to be interesting to see, kind of how he takes his game to the next level. But, when you've got guys like, I mean, so 3 players there, I think Hartzog and Tommy Hill are going to be in the NFL, and then, and then along with Nash and so that's like 5, and then I feel pretty strongly that Lenhart and Umamalian are going to be NFL players at some days. I mean, you've got a lot of talent on this defense, a lot of next level talent on this defense.
And you know what? I think James Williams might also be in the NFL. Maybe not as like a highly rated draft pick, but I think he has
Yeah,
a
he's a
talent
pretty
to be
good
it.
edge rusher.
Yeah. So
And Jamari Butler. I mean, those are two guys, Jamari Butler and James Williams, Kai Wallen, even that don't get talked about enough. But Jamari Butler was a pretty good player last year for
he
Nebraska.
was.
So,
He
I mean,
was, and so was Williams. And
yep.
it doesn't help when you're overshadowed by two of the best defensive linemen in the conference and maybe even the country. But I'm excited to see what Williams can do this year. And it does make it a little bit tough in recruiting because there's a logjam of talent, but I'd rather have a logjam of talent than none at all.
I think Nebraska might have. I think they'll be in the conversation for one of the best defensive lines in the Big Ten. I think Michigan's is better, but I think Ohio State's is right there. I mean, I think Ohio State has better edge players, but we have better defensive tackles, and I think our edge players might be just as good. So this defensive line might be as good as any outside Michigan in in the Big Ten, which I think Michigan's going to have the best D line in college football this year.
No players. So Banks, Nair, Scott, Benhart, Ty, Nash, Hill, Gifford.
Number of players drafted this year, I think, is just to
Number of
clarify.
players. Okay.
So yeah, I could see that 8 players in the
Although I don't think there will
2025
be any
draft.
drafted this year. So will there?
Well, no, he's
Or,
meaning from
oh.
this year's team. So, yeah. So Jamal Banks, Isaiah Nair, Ben Scott, Bryce Benhart, Ty Robinson, Nash, Tommy Hill, Isaac Gifford. So yeah, all those guys make sense to me. I think for sure.
Yeah, and that would be a pretty impressive amount of players for a program that hasn't had a winning history as of late. Oh, hopefully that will change, but that just speaks to the talent on the roster.
And then yeah, it depends on what some other guys do too. With like Malcolm Hartzog, because he would be a junior this year. So I mean, if he has a really good year, I don't think he probably would go that early. But yeah, it'll be nice to actually have guys going off the board in the NFL draft, and hopefully within the first couple of days, not like just the 6th round. Although we did have a few. I'm thinking of the Eagles center. Why can't I think of his name right now?
Cam Jurgens.
Yeah, Cam Jurgens. I don't know why I was blanked on that for a minute, but yeah, that will be a big boon to recruiting. Man, they better win more than 5 if you think there are 8 pros on this team. Well, yeah, they should. I mean, that's the thing, is they really should win more than this team should win 8 games, honestly. And if Dylan, you guys are gonna, if Dylan Raiola is as good as we think he's going to be, I don't see why this team can't be a playoff contender. Why they can't make a push for, why they can't win between 8 and 10 games. And if Nebraska wins 10 games this year, they're going to the playoff. Like, that's just how it is.
You're just full of clippable moments today, aren't you? I'm gonna have to clip some of these and hold you to it when you're mad at me and when we have to do our post game press conference at the end of the Iowa game and they lose by a field goal again. I'm gonna say,
yeah.
You said this, Chris.
Yeah. But I mean, I agree that there are more than 8. There are. I mean, there's a lot of good players on this team. So, I mean, I think that's why Matt Rule talks about it. I mean, you can see it. And I believe that they're going to get, I don't know, if this team doesn't win a bowl game, or doesn't get to a bowl game, if they don't get to 6 wins, then we need to get like an exorcist, and we need to get to the bottom of the curse, because that will then I'll believe that this program is cursed, because there's no other logical explanation for what's happened the last like 8 years. And then if it happens again with this team, like we got to go beyond. We got to get to the supernatural somehow.
Frank was at practice the other day, so maybe not. Maybe things are. Yeah, and actually that's the other thing too. There's been a lot of alumni at practice lately. You had Coach Osborne, Coach Solich, you had Jay Foreman, you had, let's see, I think you had a couple others too. Those are just the 3 that I could remember off the top of my head. But there's been a lot of guests at practice, and it's good to see the staff be so welcoming to the Husker legends of years past.
Yeah, it definitely feels like they, everybody's kind of pulling in the same direction with Nebraska football, and that hasn't happened for a long time. So it's, even though we lost Trev Alberts, so I think we're still, in a good spot with, where we need to be with a.
Well, I think we're in a better spot than we would have been with Trev Alberts, especially now as more stuff starts to come out. I mean, like I said earlier, it was really telling to me when, as soon as Trev Alberts leaves, Bustin' with the Boys comes down, and Dylan Raiola is doing an interview.
Well, he's more worried about, he wanted to get that resume nice and pretty for the future college football commissioner job. So, priorities, you gotta know where the priorities lie, and they didn't lie in trying to help Nebraska win. I think let's say that.
I don't want to get you into a Trev rant. It's too early in the morning for you to have your blood pressure boil. But any opinion on the Mike Minter development? Oops.
I'm not sure what you'd have to
I believe
enlighten me on that one.
I believe
To the
potentially
staff?
adding him to the staff, which I would be in favor of. Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be awesome if Mike Minter was added.
That was
to
the other guy I was
staff.
thinking of that was a practice. Mike Minter. He was there with Coach Osborne. I think one of the days that Coach Osborne came, I think he was around.
Yeah, so let's see, because he's got some coaching interest, right? Being the first, or no, let's see, he was the head coach at Campbell, special teams coach at Liberty. So yeah, I think that would be pretty interesting.
And Liberty's no slouch of a program either. No.
When was the last time Nebraska had 8 people drafted in a year? Not sure.
I'm gonna look it up. He made an unsolicited comment about working. Huh. Well, I mean, the more coaches you can have on staff, the more analysts, I think, the better. And Minter has a tremendous amount of football knowledge, so I would definitely have him on the staff if he wants to come to Nebraska.
All right, I'm looking up Nebraska draft history right now, so hold on.
I was about to do the same thing, so I'm glad you. While you're looking up Nebraska draft history, and I promise people we'll stick to Nebraska after this, how about tonight's Frozen Four game?
Yeah, it should be. Yeah, Boston College is pretty damn good.
Yeah, they are nasty this year. Probably the best team I've seen since 2012 when they had Chris Kreider, Johnny Gaudreau, Kevin Hayes. But this team is really, really good.
Okay, so 1964. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They actually had 16 players drafted, but there was also 20 rounds of the draft, but there wasn't 32 teams. So,
It's still 16 is still a lot.
And most of them came in like the first 9 rounds. 1970 had quite a few. I'm having to scroll through every year. Back when we used to get guys drafted every year. 73, they had quite a few. 6 in the first 5 rounds. Let's get to the 90s, though, the Osborne era.
It's what we're best at.
They had 7 in the first 7 rounds in 1980. So that's pretty close. Yeah, it's crazy the draft used to be 20 rounds. 93. So they had 6 guys drafted in 93, 5 in 94.
Was it the 93 draft when Mel Kiper made that comment about Trev Alberts? When
probably, yeah.
Was drafted by the Colts.
Yeah, and he wasn't very good. Well, yeah, he got hurt, so they did have 8 in 1997. Now, Michigan's had multiple years where they had more than 10 guys drafted. I know they didn't last year, but they've had 12 guys drafted before, I'm pretty sure. And this year they're going to have like over 15, I think.
And Colts director of football operations heard what Kiper had said and said, quote, "Who the hell is Mel Kiper anyway?" Following when they picked Alberts. So that was funny. I remember seeing that on, the highlights of the draft. And yeah, Alberts was never a solid NFL player, but he did get to play in the NFL. So there is something to be said for that.
Yeah, it's pretty funny, but sometimes I do wonder that myself. Who the hell is Mel Kiper?
He's still around. He's still kicking. I just saw, obviously he's one of the best draft analysts and one of the most well known. But I can't believe he's still doing it.
And he is. Mitch makes a good point about drafting, but he still had quite a few players drafted, during that era. So, so y'all need to get off the Kool-Aid a bit so early in the morning. I call it how I see it, man. You can call it Kool-Aid or whatever, but I've watched a lot of football in my day, and I feel like I know a good team when I see one now. I mean, the thing is, they were good last year. They should have won more than 5 games last year. So, I mean, they should have won more than 3 games the year before. They should have won more, so it's not like this
When did
program
they
has
win? Oh, 2021.
continually underachieved. So, I mean, like whatever we want to say about the talent, but this team has the talent to be, I think one of the better teams in the Big Ten. So we'll see if it actually happens. And the quarterback, but it'll be amazing what happens if you get a good quarterback, because as much as I love it, Nebraska hasn't had one in a long time, since basically Taylor Martinez. I mean, Tommy Armstrong was good too, but I mean, look at where Adrian Martinez is playing right now. That tells you the kind of quarterback he was. Okay, so if you get a legitimate quarterback in here, this program can actually start winning games, and they haven't had one for a long time.
I remember the overtime game against Illinois in 2019. That was when I thought Adrian Martinez was a Heisman contender, and then things quickly slipped out of control.
Yeah, well, is what it is, guys. But we'll see, man. Eventually, I think eventually the program has to get there. But at any rate, got to
You've been
start
saying
wrapping
that
up
for
here.
like 4 years.
Yeah, no, I know we have forever, but I don't know. I just have a good feeling that I think that Matt Rule is going to be Matt Rule is going to be Nebraska's Jim Harbaugh, and Dylan Raiola is going to be their JJ McCarthy. Maybe not national championship, but there's a lot. When those guys got to Michigan, there was a lot smaller jump to make. So if we can get from like 4 wins to the playoff, then I'll be excited about that.
Keep seeing JJ McCarthy mock draft to the Patriots. I hope not.
Too low. Should be number 1.
I hope not. I hope not. I hope not. If
Dude,
that happens, I'll be
he
so mad.
saved I don't understand why you don't like JJ McCarthy. Give me one reason why. You still haven't given me a good reason. I don't
because he relied a ton on the running game, and the Patriots do not have a good running game.
No, he didn't. Go watch. He threw more of his pass attempts on 3rd and 7 or longer than any team in the country, or than any quarterback in the country.
This is not Nebraska related, but do you think JJ McCarthy is worth the 3rd overall pick? Let's ask the chat.
I don't care what the chat says. People told me the same. Yeah, it's he's 6'3". He's 219 pounds. He runs the 40. He didn't run the 40-yard dash, but he runs it in 4.5. Like, trust me, he runs it in 4.5. He throws over 60 miles an hour like Josh Allen. He has the highest completion percentage of any quarterback that's ever thrown over 60 miles an hour at the NFL Combine. He completed 72% of his passes. Go look at his 3rd down production. And Michigan asked him to make tight window throws like all the time. Like, the idea that, and the Michigan's running game was not good last year. I mean, Blake Corum was good at the end, but JJ McCarthy carried that. Go watch the Nebraska game. Do you not remember the Nebraska game? I mean, he literally destroyed. He torched Nebraska so bad he didn't even have to play in the second half, and our defense was damn good.
But they also ran all over Nebraska's defense as well.
Yeah, that was one game where they ran the ball well, but who threw the 2 touchdowns? Was JJ McCarthy. Had 3 in the first half. I just don't. It's just crazy to me. Like, he torches Nebraska, and Nebraska fans think he sucks. He torches Michigan State, and Michigan State fans think he sucks. Torches Ohio State. It's just a phenomenon, in my opinion. It's just kind of crazy.
If they draft him 3rd overall, I'm not going to be happy.
Well, I mean, if they draft him 3rd overall, then they might actually have a chance to be a legit franchise. But if they, I'm not. These other quarterbacks, I mean, might be good, but I'm telling you, I'm convinced JJ McCarthy is going to be the best quarterback in this draft. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm going to be.
Well, I hope that if we draft JJ McCarthy, that you're not wrong, but
I mean, because the only argument is that he had a running game. Well, that doesn't, there's lots of great quarterbacks that have running games, but I mean, if you actually look at some of the throws he made. Look at the 2 touchdowns he had to Roman Wilson in that Nebraska game.
Yeah.
That's not a quarterback. That's not a system quarterback. Like, he makes tremendous plays. He can make plays out of the pocket. He's a QB in a pro style offense, not much wide receiver to write home about. He will get a shot. Oh my, you guys are crazy. It's just, I mean, the dude, I've seen him make throw. Like, I've watched Aaron Rodgers. I've seen JJ McCarthy make throws that only Aaron Rodgers can make. So, it's fine. But I have no doubt. Like go listen to what Dan Orlovsky's got to say about him, and go watch some of his breakdowns of him, and then maybe that'll change your mind. But I think that he's a victim of Michigan having a
Dan
good team. But
Orlovsky, he said 1 week ago that Caleb Williams was the best player in the draft, and then he immediately flipped to Jaden Daniels. He flips more than I chained my socks. So,
well, it's an inexact science, but
his evaluations are good, but his projections on best quarterback always change.
Well, I mean, I think people can change their opinion. I mean, I do think I think all those guys are really close, and I'm not saying that Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams aren't good players, but I just think that JJ
I'm not really high on
McCarthy.
Caleb Williams either, to be honest.
I just think JJ McCarthy has all the tools that you want. I mean, there's not to me if the only negative is like he didn't throw the ball that much, or he relied on the running game. Like, one, that's not true. As somebody who watched every single snap last year, that's just not true. And two, that's not a very good reason, in my opinion, because go look at, I mean, when he had to make plays, when Michigan, there was so many times last year when Michigan would come out and run the ball twice, and it would be 3rd and 6 or 3rd and 8, and he would convert it. Go watch the Michigan State game. That was he converted a bunch of 3rd downs, and it was insane throws. So, I mean, doubt him. I would just say doubt him at your own risk. I mean, people hated on me for Jordan Love. I don't know how many people on Twitter thought I was a total moron for defending the Jordan Love pick for the last 3 years, and then ended up being right about that one. So we'll see.
I mean, when you had an old Aaron Rodgers, I mean, there was a higher probability of Love succeeding, given what the Packers already had around on their roster.
So Deion Sanders is going to be a good quarterback, though. I mean, he's a good player. I think he should have left this year, though. I don't think that Colorado situation is going to help him at all.
No, and it's just, I don't think that, sure, they got a lot of players in the transfer portal, and yes, that's why their recruiting class is low, but at some point you're going to need to recruit as well, and not just go in the transfer portal. And I think that was one of Matt Rule's main points when he came here, was that he was going to focus on development. Colorado hasn't really focused a ton on development, which is, do what you want, but it makes things tougher.
I think it's wild that Deion is I'm not going to go to places and recruit, but whatever. It's crazy.
I mean, it is crazy, but granted, his name, Deion Sanders, will just bring kids in, but there's going to be a point in time when that's not going to work.
But at any rate, yeah, as long as JJ doesn't wind up with the Vikings, that's the only thing I don't want to happen in this entire draft. More than even Green Bay getting a player, I don't want them to get him, because
which honestly I could see that happening, because Minnesota needs a quarterback too.
Yeah, and they're trying to trade, and yeah, if they trade up for Drake May, then then I won't be worried. But if they trade up for JJ McCarthy, then I will be worried about the Vikings. For the first time in my entire life as a Green Bay Packers fan, I will actually be worried about the Vikings winning something.
All right, I'm going to hold you to it. I am going to hold you to it, but no, because there was talk that New England would trade their 3rd overall pick for, at one point, Minnesota's 11th, 25th, and then one other draft pick. But
regardless, I don't think that New England should pass on a quarterback. That's my opinion.
No, I don't think so either.
I think that would be a bad move, because it's yeah, if you could get if I thought for sure you could get Penix, at the start of the 2nd round, but that ain't happening. He's not going to be there. So,
and there's a ton of good wide receivers that you can get in the later rounds.
Yeah,
Marvin Harrison Jr. would be great, but you need somebody to throw him the ball.
Yeah, and I think with their defense, in Gerard Mayo, just please, for the love of everything holy, give Gerard Mayo a quarterback. Because if you don't give him a quarterback, you're not giving him a chance, and he's just going to get fired in 3 years.
I forgot you were a Patriots fan too.
So, I mean, I've been a Patriots fan since literally, I've been a Patriots fan since 1994, Danny, since Bill Parcells took over the head coaching job. And I can remember Drew Bledsoe's first playoff game against the Cleveland Browns after they went 11-5. I remember when they beat the Jacksonville Jaguars with Mark Brunell to make the Super Bowl in 1996.
And then they lost to the Packers.
That was and I had my Packers and my Patriots jerseys those days, my Drew Bledsoe and my Reggie White. So that was kind of an interesting day. But yeah, that happened to me twice because I had the Packers and the Patriots play in the Super Bowl, and then I had Michigan and Nebraska share the national championship. So that was really weird. So like a
Yeah.
lot of Michigan
Oh
fans are
yeah, the same
bitter.
year. Yeah.
Yeah, so like a lot of Michigan fans are bitter about that season where I'm like, no, it was, and Nebraska fans are too, somewhat.
Yeah.
Like there's this bit where I'm like, no, that was perfect. That was like, how could you get better than both of your teams sharing the championship? Like nowadays they'd have to play each other for it, and it would suck because then one of them, But now when I look back on that season, I got 2 national championships to celebrate. So pretty sweet.
Colorado will need to flip a trust every 2 years. They only succeed. Yeah.
I don't know, man. The way that things are going, I'm not sure if Dion's going to be there in 2 years.
No, I don't think so either. Either he leaves for a better job or he gets fired.
Now, maybe he proves me wrong on that, and everybody else proves me wrong on the
No, I
JJ
don't
McCarthy
think
thing. But who knows?
if I had to choose between your JJ McCarthy take today and your Deion Sanders take today, I would bet on your Deion Sanders take because I've always thought the same thing too. He'll either leave for a better job or he'll get fired. I mean, I'm not going to say he needs to win this year, but he needs to put together a solid showing.
True. So I'll make my last point, and then I gotta go see if I gotta.
So that's your Nebraska Cornhuskers chat.
I gotta get off onto some baby assistance probably, but I've always thought that Dion would either be a massive success at Colorado or a massive failure. So right now, you guess which way things are trending. We'll see this year, but if they don't win this year and he loses his son at quarterback, I think he's getting fired eventually.
I can't wait for that game in Lincoln this year.
Payback, baby. Let's get some payback.
You're so close. If stupid Jeff Sims didn't,
I'd like to see Shedeur Sanders not like hurt, but I'd like to see him like Frank Costa circa the 1994 Orange Bowl or 93 Orange Bowl. I'm not sure. 94. Yeah, 1994 Orange Bowl. Sorry. You old school Nebraska fans will know what I'm talking about. That's what I want Shedeur Sanders to look like this fall.
I wasn't even born yet, so I have no idea what you're talking about.
Go watch the game. He's the Miami quarterback, and like by the end of it, he was so beat up, like he looked like an old man walking off the field. So that's what I don't want Shedeur Sanders like hurt where he can't play, but I want him physically wounded.
You want him to feel it a little bit. Feel it, yeah.
Yeah. I want him to know Cameron Leonard and Nash and Ty Robinson very well on that Saturday afternoon. So
I mean the crowd will be jumping, the place will be rocking. So I like our chances.
And as we'll circle all around an old Big 8 game, man, back in Lincoln. I love those. The last one though with Oklahoma was not good. So
was that the Mickey Joseph game?
Yeah, that was the Mickey Joseph game.
I totally forgot about that one just until you mentioned that just now and they got rolled. And I had to go to a party. I'm like, I'd rather go to a party than watch.
But remember they came out and like Oklahoma, I think, went like 3 and out or punted, and then Trey Palmer caught like a 50-yard touchdown, and it was like, oh man, we're in business. And then Oklahoma scored like 49 points in a row.
I do remember that because I just remember just sitting there, just watching the score go up and up. Dylan Gabriel like was running everywhere, making all these throws. I'm like, oh no! It was the exact same feeling I got from the beginning of the Northwestern game that year. That first touchdown catch from IGC, and then I'm like, wow, we're in business. We're gonna be really good this year. And then
so you can't let yourself think that, because then the curse gets us all. So anytime any Nebraska fan thinks, oh, we're about to be good this season, then it like adds to the curse. So universally, you guys, we have to block out all positive thoughts, except on this podcast where we voice them constantly. So at any rate.
Do we? I mean, I think we complain a lot. We've complained less.
I do. I am a Kool-Aid drinker, though. That's just who I am. I'm an optimistic person. So sorry.
That's good. I like optimism. I could have used this podcast during the 2021 season when I was ready to put my head through a wall.
That would have been bad. That would have not been a fun season to have a. But brighter times are ahead, you guys, and at any rate, I better go change some diapers here soon. So we'll be back on Monday, though, with some more. We'll be talking about the scrimmage that's happening today, I'm sure. So check out HuskerBigRed.com as well. And as always, go Big Red and have a great weekend.
Go Big Red. Have a good weekend, everybody.